The night was quiet on the lonely mining planet called Vora 6. Ryan, a human engineer, was the only one left on the old outpost. The others had been evacuated months ago when the company pulled funding, but Ryan stayed behind, maintaining the machines, hoping Earth would remember him. No one came, no one called, and soon. He stopped checking the comms that night. Ryan sat by the heater, eating cold rations from a metal tray. His eyes were tired, and his beard had grown wild outside. The wind howled across the empty plains. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and he heard a strange clink, like metal against metal. He froze. Slowly placing his fork down, the security system didn't beep. No alert, no alarm. But when he checked the small screen on the wall, the hallway camera showed something. A shadow moved past the door, graceful and fast. Ryan leaned in, narrowing his eyes, and then she appeared. An alien woman, tall and sleek, her skin a soft silver blue, eyes glowing faintly gold, wore tight armor, half burned with smoke. Rising from her shoulder, in her hand was a blade curved, humming and sharp. She stepped into the kitchen silently, her gaze locked on him. Ryan's heart pounded, but he didn't move. She stood just 5 feet away now, her weapon lowered, but not gone. Ryan held up his hand slowly and said, "You hungry?" The alien woman didn't answer, only stared. Ryan opened a ration pack and gently pushed it across the table. She looked down at it, then back at him. "I'm not here to eat," she finally said, her voice soft but cold. "I figured," Ryan replied with a small shrug, "you're here to kill me, right?" She blinked, surprised he said it so casually. He smiled, just a little. "Well, if you're going to do it, can we at least sit down first?" For the first time, the assassin seemed unsure. Zura, that was her name, though Ryan didn't know it yet. She had trained all her life for missions like this. Silent kills, no questions, but this human. He didn't beg, didn't scream, didn't run. He treated her like a guest, even when he saw the blade. That was new, and it made her hesitate. Zura slowly sat across from him, still holding her weapon. Ryan picked up his fork again, took a bite of his cold food. "You look tired," he said. "Wounded too," she didn't reply. But her shoulders were tense, her eyes watching every movement he made. Then he added, "There's a med kit behind you, if you need it." Zura looked at him for a long moment, then at the kit on the wall. She didn't stand, didn't take it, but her gaze lingered. "You're strange, human," she finally said. Ryan chuckled quietly. "You don't know the half of it." Time passed slowly, the room filled with heavy silence. Zura didn't eat. But she didn't leave either. She asked no questions, and Ryan gave no answers. They just sat, like two ghosts trapped in the same dream. Later, Ryan lay down on his bunk. Pretending to sleep, his eyes stayed half open, just enough to watch. Zura stood at the foot of his bed. Unmoving, her eyes glowing softly in the dark. She didn't raise her weapon, didn't strike. She just stared. Confused, lost, and angry. At herself, outside, the wind screamed again, but inside, the only sound was her breath. Ryan's voice broke the silence, low and calm. "You're not going to kill me, are you?" Zura clenched her jaw, looked away. "I don't know," she whispered, almost to herself. Then she sat on the floor by the door. Still awake, still watching, Ryan finally closed his eyes fully, not out of trust, but because whatever was coming next, he'd rather face it rested. The assassin had arrived, her mission clear. But something had shifted the moment she saw him, and deep inside, even she didn't know why she hadn't followed through. The night dragged on, heavy with questions. And Ryan knew this wasn't just a random encounter. It was the beginning of something strange, something dangerous, and maybe, just maybe, something more. Zura didn't sleep that night. She sat against the cold metal wall, her blade resting beside her. The human Ryan slept peacefully, or at least pretended to. His slow breathing filled the small outpost room, warm and steady like a whisper. She watched him, trying to figure out why she hadn't killed him. Her mission was clear. She had been trained since childhood to complete it without emotion. Humans were enemies, destroyers, violators of her people's stars. She had seen the reports: outposts burned, ships captured, planets poisoned. Ryan was just one of them. A weak piece in a larger war, and yet she didn't strike. She had the perfect moment. He was unarmed, exposed, peaceful, but when she looked into his eyes, she saw something that made her stop. Not fear, not anger, just a calm sadness, something more, a loneliness she knew too well. Before coming to this planet, she had studied his profile. Engineer, age 32, emotionally stable, left behind after evacuation, not dangerous, not a soldier, just someone abandoned. But what the report didn't say was that he smiled when offering food to a stranger, or that he talked to her like she mattered. That morning, Ryan woke up slowly, rubbing his eyes, still here. He said, half joking, "Guess I didn't die in my sleep." Zura didn't answer. Only stood and walked past him into the hallway. He followed her carefully, not out of fear, but curiosity. She was exploring the outpost like someone looking for a reason to stay in the control room. She studied the wall of broken monitors. Most screens were dead, others showed static, and one showed the endless red sky outside. Ryan leaned beside her, sipping weak coffee from a cracked mug. "You expecting backup?" he asked, his voice light. Zura turned her head slowly. "You think I need backup to kill you?" He smiled. "No, but maybe." To decide not to, that caught her off guard. Her eyes narrowed, but there was no threat in them, just confusion, deep and real. "I'm not used to targets that talk," she muttered. "And I'm not used to assassins who hesitate," he replied. She walked to the storage shelf and ran her fingers over an old photo frame. Inside it was a faded picture Anne and a child. With short, dark hair, both smiling, she stared at the child. Frozen. "Who is this?" she asked quietly. "My sister's daughter," Ryan said. "I helped raise her." Before the war, Zura's fingers trembled, but she quickly hid it. The child in the photo had the same eyes as someone she once loved, a cousin lost to the first wave of fighting. For a moment, memory and mission blurred. She stepped back, dropping the frame, but Ryan caught it before it hit the floor. "Careful," he said. "That's all I have left of her." Zura stared at him, her voice sharp now. "You humans pretend to care. You act like victims, but you take everything." Ryan didn't argue, didn't defend. He just looked her in the eyes and said, "I didn't take anything, Zura." She froze. "You know my name?" He nodded. "I read it last night on your wrist implant when you stood by the bed." Zura stepped back, unsure. This human, he wasn't supposed to be observant or calm, and yet he saw everything. And still chose kindness. She hated it, and at the same time, something deep inside her wanted to know more. "I was ordered to kill you before sunrise," she said, her voice flat. Ryan looked at the window where morning light peeked through. "Well," he said softly, "looks like I survived the deadline." She clenched her fists, frustrated. "Don't test me, human. I'm not," he said, placing the photo gently back on the shelf. "I'm just trying to understand what changed your mind." Zura didn't answer. Because the truth scared her something had changed, and it wasn't just him, it was her too. Later that day, Ryan worked outside, repairing the oxygen filters. Zura watched. From the doorway, arms crossed, she didn't understand why he still trusted her. He should have run or locked her out. Instead, he handed her tools when she asked, when a sudden gust knocked her down. Ryan ran to help. She pushed him away, but not with anger, with shame. "I don't need help," she growled. He nodded. "Okay," but he stood near, just in case. And when she stumbled again, she let him steady her, just for a second, that evening. Ryan shared his last can of real food peach slices. He gave her half, even though she hadn't asked. She ate quietly, her eyes soft for the first time. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "Because someone has to be the first to stop fighting." He said. She didn't reply, just looked at him like she was seeing something new, not a target, not an enemy, but maybe a reason. Zura stood and walked toward the hallway, her blade still in its sheath. But she didn't reach for it this time. Whatever was happening inside her missionette was no longer just about orders, and Ryan, standing alone with two empty bowls in his hands, knew this was no ordinary visitor. Something had begun between them, something fragile, dangerous, and strangely hopeful. The red sky above Vora 6 darkened faster than usual that evening. Ryan stood outside the outpost, welding a cracked pipe near the solar array. Zura stood a few meters away, her eyes scanning the horizon. She smelled something strange in the wind. Metallic. Charged, heavy. A storm was coming, and it wasn't just dust and lightning. She walked up to Ryan, her voice calm but firm. "You need to go inside." He looked up, confused. "It's just wind." She shook her head. "It's more than wind. The storm carries radiation, silent, deadly." Ryan dropped his tools and followed her inside without arguing. Something in her tone told him this wasn't the time to joke. Inside, Zura sealed the outer doors, locking the outpost into emergency mode. The systems flickered, power shifting to core batteries. Red lights filled the room, and the temperature began to drop. Ryan moved toward the backup heater, kicking it gently until it rumbled to life. Zura watched every move, amazed that he still knew how to fix things with his hands. "This happens often?" he asked, pulling 2 blankets from a storage bin. "Only on cursed planets," she replied, wrapping one around herself. Ryan handed her a steaming cup of mineral water. "Welcome to Earth's finest leftovers." She smirked faintly just for a second, and for that second, she looked less like an assassin and more like someone simply cold. The storm outside screamed. Dust slamming against the dome-like fists, power surged again, and then the lights died. Darkness wrapped around them, broken only by the soft glow of the emergency lamp. Ryan sighed. Perfect timing. Zura stood, slowly. "We need to stay warm, or we won't survive the night." They sat near the old heater. Barely 3 feet apart, the warmth reached them. In waves, weak but steady, Ryan looked at her arms, burned still healing, skin flaking near the edges of her armor. "You never patched that wound," he said, pointing. "It's fine," she replied coldly. He shook his head, reached for the end. "Medkit? It's not." Zura glared at him. "You treat me like a friend, I treat you like someone who bleeds." He answered. She didn't stop him this time. He knelt beside her, gently wiping the wound and applying a clean seal strip. His hands moved carefully, respectfully, not touching more than needed. As he worked, she studied his face. There was no fear, no anger, just focus and quiet strength. Her people taught her that humans were liars, cruel and soft in the worst way. But Ryan didn't fit the stories. He didn't even carry a weapon. "Why are you still alive?" she whispered. Ryan looked up, surprised. "Excuse me? You should have died out here." "Long ago," she added. He leaned back and smiled. "Maybe I'm just too stubborn. Or maybe," she thought, the universe had kept him alive. For this moment, suddenly, a loud snap echoed through the outpost. The heater flickered and went out. No, don't die on me now," Ryan muttered. Opening the panel, he began rewiring quickly, hands shaking in the cold. Zura stood beside him, placing a warmer light crystal near the wires. Together, they worked without speaking. When the heater came back to life, both let out a breath at the same time. "You're not bad at this," she said softly. "You're not bad at helping," he replied. Silence returned. But now it wasn't heavy, it was warm. Like a quiet understanding, hours passed slowly. Ryan drifted off near the heater, his head leaning back, eyes closed. Zura stayed awake, always alert, but this time, she wasn't watching for weakness. She was watching him. The storm outside began to fade, its howls turning to whispers. Inside, Zura stood and gently placed the extra blanket over Ryan's legs. Her fingers brushed his hand for just a second. Warmth spread through her chest and she hated that she noticed it. She turned quickly, walking to the window and staring out into the dust-filled dark. A question echoed in her mind, louder than any storm. "What are you doing, Zura?" She had killed dozens before, him efficient, cold, fast, but Ryan had changed something inside her. And it wasn't weakness, it was memory. She remembered what it felt like to be cared for long ago, before the war, before her people made her a weapon, and now, in the arms of a forgotten outpost. In the company of a lonely human, Zura felt something she hadn't in years. Safe morning came slowly, the skies outside still gray, but calm. Ryan woke up to find her standing near the window, her back straight, her blade sheathed. He stretched, groaned, and said, "Still here?" She turned, her voice softer than before. "Yeah, still here." The storm had passed. But something else remained, something unspoken between them. Zura had come as a killer, a shadow in the night, but now she wasn't so sure what she was any more, and Ryan was no longer just a target asterisk. The storm had ended, but its silence left something heavier behind. Zura stayed near the window longer than needed, her eyes scanning the now-still horizon. Ryan walked past her, stretching his arms and yawning. Good to be alive, she didn't answer. But when he turned to look at her, she gave a small nod. It wasn't a thank you, but it wasn't nothing either. Later that afternoon, Ryan worked on clearing the storage bay. Dust and debris had piled up near the back wall after months of neglect. Zura followed, silent and curious. "What are you looking for?" she asked, watching him toss aside broken crates. "Something I shouldn't have found," he said with a half-smile. "And maybe you'll know what it is." He pulled out a black case, long and smooth, covered in strange markings. "I found this 2 weeks ago, buried under collapsed rock near the mining shaft." Ryan said, "I tried opening it, but it wouldn't budge." Zura's eyes narrowed. Those markings weren't human. They were Vexery, her people's ancient symbols. "Forbidden to outsiders? Don't touch it again," she said quickly. Stepping forward, Ryan looked confused. "Why? Is it dangerous?" "It's not meant for you," she said, her voice tense. But Ryan already had his hand on the latch. "It lit up when I held it." She froze. "It lit up?" He nodded. "Yeah, I don't know how, but it hummed. Like it was alive." Zura pushed him gently aside and knelt in front of the case. She placed her hand on the center. Nothing happened, but when Ryan stepped closer, the lights returned, pulsing under his fingertips. Zura stared at him, the disbelief clear in her golden eyes. "No human should be able to activate this," she whispered. Ryan pulled his hand back, nervous now. "Then what does that make me?" She stood slowly, her face pale under the silver-blue skin. "You're not just human," he laughed lightly, trying to shake off the weight in her voice. "Well, I feel human," he said. "I eat terrible food, talk to myself, and fix broken heater." Zura didn't laugh, didn't smile. She walked to the far wall. Tapping a small panel on her wrist, a hologram appeared. Blueprints, codes, star charts, and a flashing symbol. "What is that?" Ryan asked, stepping closer. "It's the mark of a genetic key," she replied. "Used only once, centuries ago." He blinked. "And you think I'm connected to it?" She turned to him, her voice almost a whisper. "I think you're the reason they sent me here?" Ryan's smile faded. "Wait, you mean you weren't sent here just to kill some lonely outpost guy?" Zura nodded slowly. "No, I thought I was. But now I see your DNA isn't just human." He stepped back, his mind racing. "So what am I?" She looked away. "Something my people fear, or maybe something they need." In the silence that followed, Ryan opened the case again. Inside was a strange object, silver, glowing with moving veins of light. It floated slightly when he touched it, responding like it recognized him. Zura whispered an ancient word. Raquel and Ryan looked at her. "What's that mean?" She answered, "It means chosen spark." The artifact suddenly shifted, spinning faster and casting blue light across the room. Zura pulled Ryan back, but it didn't attack. Instead, it hovered above his chest, as if waiting for him to speak. "I don't want this," Ryan said, panicked. "I didn't ask for this." Zura placed a hand on his shoulder. "Neither did I." But here we are. As the light dimmed, the artifact slowly returned to the case. Silent again, both stood still for a long moment. Ryan broke the silence. "So, what now? Do I grow wings? Shoot lasers from my eyes?" Zura shook her head. "It's not a weapon. It's a test." "A test for what?" he asked. She looked at him seriously. "To see if you're the one who can unite to dying worlds." He let out a long breath. "That's a lot of pressure for a guy who hasn't shaved in weeks." Zura almost smiled again. Almost, but the truth was too heavy now. She had come to end a life. Instead, She had found a key to something far older. Outside, the wind began to rise again. A storm, but a warning. The Vexery would come soon, and when they did, they'd be looking for the artifact. And for him. Zura closed the case gently, locking it with a command only she could say. Ryan sat on the floor, staring at the faint glow still on his hand. "You should have killed me," he said quietly. Zura looked down at him, her voice low. "Maybe I was never supposed to." The secret in the storage bay had changed everything, and now their choices were no longer about survival. They were about destiny, trust, and something neither of them truly understood yet. But one thing was certain. Ryan wasn't alone anymore, and Zura wasn't an assassin anymore. Zura had always been known for her steady hands, back on her homeworld. Her blade never wavered, not in training, not in battle. She could strike a moving target in total darkness. She could shoot a fly off a wall at 50 meters without blinking. But now, standing alone in the storage bay, her hand was shaking. It wasn't from fear. Not the fear of death or pain. She had been trained to rise above that. No, this was something new, something worse. It was the fear of hesitation, of feeling, something she wasn't supposed to have. Ryan entered the room behind her, quiet but not sneaky. He noticed the way she stood stiffly, her back straight, her fingers clenched. "You okay?" he asked gently. She turned her head slightly, eyes distant. "No." He waited, letting the silence stretch. Zura finally spoke. "I lied to my command." He blinked. "You mean when they asked if I was dead?" "Told them you were terminated." Ryan crossed his arms, leaning against the wall. "That's a big lie for someone like you," she replied softly. "It's a lie I've never told before." The weight of her words hung heavy in the air. Zura had broken the one rule she was never meant to question: obedience. And worse, she didn't regret it. She looked at Ryan, really looked at him. This man, who should have been a corpse, had somehow become important. "Why didn't you kill me?" he asked again, the same question from that first night. Zura stepped closer, her voice thin like smoke. "Because you smiled at me." What? He tilted his head, confused. "I've seen men beg, scream, fight, but you smiled." "Like I wasn't a monster." Ryan's voice was quiet. "You're not." Her jaw clenched, emotions pulling her in every direction. "I'm not who I was when I landed," she said. "And I don't know who I'm becoming." Ryan gave a half laugh. "Join the club." They both sat on opposite crates, facing each other in the dim light of the bay. "Do you want to run?" Ryan asked gently. "I can help you hide. I know this planet better than anyone." Zura shook her head. "They'll find me. They always do. Then we fight," he said. Without hesitation, her eyes widened. "You would fight your own kind for me?" "No," Ryan said. "I'd fight for what's right and right now. That includes you." She looked down at her trembling hand again. The assassin inside her screamed to take control, to finish the mission, but something stronger now lived. In her chest, a flicker of something human. She opened her palm and slowly laid her weapon on the ground. "I don't want to be a weapon anymore," she whispered. Ryan stood and walked toward her. He sat beside her, not touching, just being there. "You don't have to be," he said quietly. The silence between them wasn't awkward. It was peaceful. It's like a shared truth, but peace wouldn't last. Her wrist communicator lit up, flashing red. An incoming message, encrypted, urgent. She opened it with a wave of her fingers. A distorted voice filled the room, speaking in the harsh language of her people. "Zura 13, your silence confirms. Guilt, retrieval unit en route. Eliminate the asset or be eliminated." The message ended with coordinates and a timer. Ryan leaned in. "Was that your people?" Zura nodded slowly. "They're sending someone to finish what I didn't." He swallowed hard. "How long do we have?" She tapped the timer. 18 hours. They both stood now. No time left for doubts. "What's the plan?" he asked. Zura looked him in the eyes, her voice stronger now. "We run together." They began gathering supplies, oxygen tanks, food packs, weapon cores. Ryan showed her a hidden tunnel near the back of the bay. "It leads to the abandoned satellite tower on Ridge 9, he said. "No one goes there anymore, not even drones." Zura nodded. "Then that's where we go." As they prepared to leave, Ryan noticed her reach for her blade, then pause. She stared at it, as if seeing it for the first time. Then she left it behind. Ryan raised a brow. "That's your favorite toy," she answered softly. "It doesn't belong to who I'm becoming." Her hand no longer shook. Not because the fear was gone, but because she had finally chosen her side. And it wasn't the assassin's path anymore. It was the uncertain, terrifying path of trust. Zura turned to Ryan, her voice steady now. "Let's go before I change." "My mind?" He grinned. "Too late, you're stuck with me." And together, they slipped into the tunnel. The darkness ahead uncertain, but they moved forward, not as enemies, but as something far more dangerous to lost souls learning. To stand together, the sun never truly rose on Vora 6. The sky only shifted from dark red to pale orange, as if the planet refused to offer hope. Zura and Ryan moved quickly through the narrow service tunnel. Their footsteps echoing between cold metal walls. Ryan carried a pack full of supplies, and Zura kept scanning ahead with sharp eyes. They didn't speak much, not out of silence, but focus. After 2 hours, they reached a hatch that opened onto a high ridge. Below them lay Ridge 9, a forgotten communication tower half buried in dust and ash. The old antennas leaned like bones under the burning sky. Zura looked around, her voice low. No drone patrols. Yet Ryan replied, "Good, means we're not late." They entered the tower and sealed the door behind them. Inside, the place smelled of rust and burned circuits. Ryan wiped dust off the control panel and started checking the power flow. Zura stood by the broken window, eyes on the sky. She could feel it, they were coming, back at her old command center. A silent alarm had triggered the launch of an elite Vexery strike team. These were not scouts or spies, they were enforcers, silent, merciless, and loyal. And unlike her, they would not hesitate. Zura knew each of them by name, and they would show her no mercy, especially not for what she had done. "Ryan," she said quietly, "we may not survive this." He looked up from the panel. "Then let's make it cost them something." She almost smiled again. The way he turned fear into fire, maybe that's what made him different. Not strength, but choice. Hours passed slowly. They reinforced the doors with scrap metal and loaded what few energy cells they had left. Zura gave Ryan a small plasma pulse pistol. He held it awkwardly. "I hate weapons." She replied, "So do I." He looked at her. "Funny how both of us started on the opposite side of this story." She nodded, and now we're in the same chapter. Just after sunset, the sky split open. A soundless black ship descended above the ridge. Sleek like a blade, cloaked to human tech. Zura felt it before she saw it. Her blood chilled. "They're here," she whispered. 3 figures dropped silently from the ship, wearing black armor and breathing no air. Their boots hit the dirt. Without sound, moving like shadows, one scanned the tower with a glowing visor. "They're inside," it transmitted in the Vexery tongue. "Orders are clear," another replied. "No survivors inside." Ryan heard the scanner hum and aimed his pistol with shaking hands. Zura crouched beside him, her voice calm. "They'll come through the side hatch. It's the weakest point." He nodded, swallowing his fear. "Zura," he whispered, "what if I freeze?" She placed her hand gently on his. "Then I'll shoot for both of us." The hatch exploded inward, metal flying like knives. Smoke filled the hallway as 2 enforcers entered. Zura moved fast, a blur of silver and shadow, her strike knocking. One back, Ryan fired once, missed, but then aimed again and hit the second square in the chest. The armor sparked, but didn't fail. Zura kicked the enemy into the wall. This time, it stayed down. The third assassin dropped through the ceiling, blade spinning. Zura tackled Ryan out of the way just in time. The ceiling cracked and collapsed as they hit the floor together for a moment. Everything went still. Then she screamed in pain. A shard of metal had sliced her side deep. Ryan pulled her behind cover, blood on his hands now. No, stay with me," he said. Panicked, Zura gasped, "Don't stop. Activate the core." He nodded, rushing to the panel she had pre-programmed earlier. The artifact from the storage bay sat in a chamber beneath it, humming softly. Ryan placed his hand on it. The light flared brighter than before. The tower shook as energy surged outward, blasting static into the air. The third enforcer stepped forward but paused. The artifact was reacting violently. Power rippling in all directions, Zura crawled beside Ryan, blood on her lips. If he touches that, it will reject him, she whispered. Ryan nodded and stepped forward, standing between the enemy and the artifact. You want it? He said. Then you'll have to go through me. The enforcer lunged, but the artifact pulsed, sending out a shockwave that threw the enemy across the room. The pulse was not just power, it was choice. It had chosen Ryan. Silence returned, broken only by Zura's shallow breathing.
I'm right.
Ryan rushed to her side, pressing cloth against her wound. Stay with me, he begged. Don't go. Her eyes fluttered. Her hand gripped his shirt weakly. I'm not done yet, she whispered above them. The black ship began to retreat. The artifact's energy made the air too unstable. They had failed worse. They had witnessed the impossible. A human had bonded with the core, and Zura had survived to protect him. Ryan cradled her gently, whispering, You saved me. She smiled faintly. I told you. My hands only shake when I'm choosing the right thing. And that night, beneath the shattered tower and the stars above, two people who should have been enemies became something far more dangerous: hope. The tower was quiet, the dust had settled, the lights had faded, and only the soft hum of the artifact remained. Ryan sat beside Zura, holding her hand, his own fingers stained with blood and dirt. He had wrapped her side with torn cloth, but she had lost too much already, and still, she smiled at him. Even through the pain, you still breathing? He whispered gently. Zura nodded slowly, barely. Her voice was soft, almost fading, but her eyes were still sharp. She looked at the glowing artifact resting beside them. It pulsed like a heart, alive and warm. You bonded with it, she said, wonder in her voice. Ryan nodded. I didn't mean to. No one ever means to, she whispered. It chooses not you, he leaned back. I'm not sure I like being chosen. She gave a weak laugh. Neither did I. A soft wind moved through the broken tower windows. Ryan looked up at the pale orange sky. I never thought my life would matter like this, he said. You were just a name in a file, Zura murmured. But when I saw your face, saw something else. What did you see? He asked gently. She stared at him for a long moment. I saw someone who could make even a weapon like me. Feel human? Ryan blinked, unsure how to reply. Zura wasn't just talking about survival now, she was speaking about transformation. You know, he said, when I first saw you. I thought you were going to cut me in half, she smiled. Faintly, so did I. But you didn't, he continued. Why? Zura looked toward the artifact, her voice low. Because when I saw you, I remembered who I used to be, back when she was young. Before the training, before the war. She had dreams, she remembered them now. Peace, family, stars without fire, and something else. Something her people never wanted her to speak of: connection. I wasn't meant to love, she said softly. But I think I do. Ryan's heart skipped. He looked at her, unsure if he heard her right. But she didn't look away, didn't laugh it off. She simply met his gaze. Full of pain, full of strength. I love you, she whispered, and I'm scared of it. He leaned closer, pressing his forehead gently to hers. You're not alone anymore, he said. I've got you. She exhaled shakily, a single tear slipping down her cheek, and then the artifact glowed brighter, as if it responded to their bond. Suddenly, a small screen blinked to life on the tower wall, a signal faint, but real. Ryan turned quickly, scanning the display. It's Earth, he said in disbelief. A rescue ship. It's coming this way. Zura's eyes widened. They heard you. He shook his head. No, I didn't send anything. The artifact did? Zura smiled, her voice fading. It's alive, and it wants peace. Ryan looked down at her, panic returning. No, stay awake. You're going to be okay, she coughed, her body trembling. You don't understand, she whispered. They'll never let me go back, not after this. Then don't, Ryan said. Stay with me. Come to Earth. We'll disappear. Her hand gripped his tighter. I'd like that, she said. Just let me rest first. Hours passed. The rescue ship finally landed just outside the tower. Lights flashing across the dust. 3 humans in white suits rushed in, medical gear in hand. They found Ryan sitting with her in his arms. "She's alive," he said, voice breaking, "but she needs help now." As they lifted her onto the stretcher, one of the medics paused, looking at her features. "Is she alien?" the man asked quietly. Ryan met his eyes. "She's not just alien, she's the reason I'm still alive," the medic nodded, then turned and shouted for more assistance. As the ship lifted off, Ryan sat beside Zura's bed, holding her hand again, the artifact now, quiet-rested in a sealed chamber below deck. Its mission was complete. Or maybe just beginning. Zura woke briefly mid-flight, her voice like wind. "Do you think they'll accept me?" Ryan kissed her forehead. "They'll accept you because I will fight for you." She smiled, eyes heavy, then maybe peace. As a chance, the stars moved past the windows slowly. And Ryan knew that his world had changed forever, not because of war or death or technology, but because a trained killer had walked into his kitchen and left as someone he loved.